Welcome, Union siblings, to my Leadership Academy project for Class 31. I am Aaron Leduc, President of Branch 125, Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. I will be taking you on a journey about Act 10 through the eyes of a letter carrier. The reason I have chosen Act 10 as my project is because it affected many unions at the state level in Wisconsin. Collective bargaining was under attack by Scott Walker when he took office. During our journey through Act 10, starting in 2011 when Scott Walker was introduced as the governor of Wisconsin, all the way through to present day, where the Supreme Court of Wisconsin will be taking up the case to decide if the original legislation of Act 10 was and is unconstitutional, either later this year in 2025 or early 2026. Now grab some popcorn, kick your feet back, and enjoy the NALC leadership I was able to interview for this project and get their insight into what happened during Act 10. These members of the NALC, along with hundreds more, rallied behind those state union brothers and sisters to fight for their rights. We, as the National Association of Letter Carriers, hope that this type of attack never happens to our membership. And if that day comes, those state unions will rally behind us. December 15th, 2010. Democratic leaders call a special session, pressing to approve union contracts ahead of Scott Walker swearing in. WSALC, past President Scott Van Derven, explains.
Marty Beal was the AFSCME president. He was in direct negotiations for the new contracts for the state employees. He thought he had made reasonable concessions, and they were just not going to be happening because it was not really about negotiating with the unions. It was making sure that the unions were going to be cut off. That's just what Scott Walker wanted. At the same time, he wanted to make sure that his police and fire were insulated from that so that he could have that backup and say, well, see, it's it's a great benefit to the protection of our citizens or some such thing.
January 3rd, 2011. Scott Walker is sworn in as the 45th governor of Wisconsin. February 11th, 2011. Governor Scott Walker proposes a plan to cut benefits for public employees and reduce the union's ability to bargain. 3 days later, Governor Walker introduces the measure in the legislature. What happens next shakes the foundation of the labor movement.
February of 2011. A lot of discussion was happening on the workroom floor. A lot of members had spouses who worked for the state. I do remember one particular member. His name was Kevin Massey. His wife, diehard teacher, loved what she did. Came to me and explained everything that was going on. So prior to him exactly telling me everything that was in Act 10, it was just mainly of what was on the media, what they were putting out, union busting, this and that. But having that conversation with Kevin really brought it to light of what they were doing to the state workers.
Really unbelievable that in the state of Wisconsin, where our motto is forward and at the time we're thought to be progressive, and that this was happening to municipal workers and teachers, and it all seemed kind of unreal, but very necessary to go and try to help make the voices heard on the local labor council at the time. So, I knew prison guards and the municipal workers who they're no longer part of the labor council anymore. I mean, it was just kind of unreal to me and something that really you needed to take part in.
I was angry and appalled at what was happening to the unions at the state level. This was the first time I felt at the core of my being the need to get active in politics. Before this, I was one of those, it doesn't really impact me people. I'm not going to make a difference. One vote doesn't make a difference. I've learned differently. while I was thankful I was a federal employee, it also made me feel a little guilty because I wasn't being impacted. So I was aware of my privilege in that moment, and I was absolutely aware that the privilege could be revoked at the stroke of a pen. We hear that saying all the time, and I was watching it happen to friends and family and neighbors.
I think we got a call out, if I remember right back then, Chris Wittenberg was our business agent. And I think he kind of gave us a heads up that what was going to happen. Minneapolis, St. Paul was thinking about bringing some buses down. They kind of got the word out. Chicago was going to bring some buses up. So Darla and I, we just thought it was a no-brainer to be involved in this. We could see the writing on the wall that they were probably going to push the right to work down the road if they got this through.
I can agree with Brent. Chris was our business agent at the time and got us involved in it. And, both being state officers as well, we thought that would be important for South Dakota to be represented by somebody. And it was awesome to see all the buses that Chicago had brought in, Minneapolis, St. Paul, all the other letter carriers. It was quite an awesome thing. And you wouldn't think that you lose things, but it happened really fast. And they're still seeing the repercussions of it.
Act 10 was, of course, the proposal that was done then by Governor Scott Walker on the pretense that he needed to balance the budget of the state, which was a bunch of nonsense, to basically attack the collective bargaining rights of the workers in the state of Wisconsin. I know it limited what they could bargain for. I know it took away some of it made them pay more for their benefits. The unions had to certify every year to stay representing the workplace. And yeah, there were a lot of bad things about Act 10. I know they had a budget name for it, but I don't recall that. I remember Kill the Bill. I mean, that's all we were talking about was kill the bill. But no, it was an attack on union workers in the state of Wisconsin. Flat and simple, on the basis of the state being broke.
February 17th, 2011. Protesters rally at the Wisconsin State Capitol in Madison to voice their opposition to Act 10.
As we were pulling in, you passed by the Capitol, of course, a few blocks away, but you could just see the mass of people with signs. And it kind of sparked a fire. And as they parked the bus and we got out, it was probably 20,000 people deep already. It was almost immediately. We just jumped in, started, marching around the Capitol, joining in some of the chants. Our branch did have a sign of a guy bending over with his butt showing. And it said, "Scott Walker, your bill stinks."
One thing I do remember of walking around was on a small wooden door that came out at ground level of the Capitol. There were a bunch of Post-its that where people wrote messages. A lot of them were to teachers, but the one that really stuck with me was, if you can read this message, thank a teacher. And I thought, that is just so basic and so true. How can we underappreciate these people and try to take away some of their bargaining rights?
February 18th, 2011. 14 Democratic state senators fled the state to Rockford, Illinois. Mark Miller, the former minority leader in the Wisconsin State Senate, said, "We decided basically, spur of the moment, to leave the state. By doing so, the Senate would not have quorum to vote on the fiscal bill."
They just felt it so necessary to try to stall the vote as long as they could, which it didn't matter anyway. But I think with them leaving the state, it did give people more time to get out and try to get their voices heard. And really, I think that took a lot of courage for them to do that because they were all called on the carpet for it. But I think their supporters all really appreciated it. And I'm sure all those union members who were going to lose their union basically appreciated the fact that they tried to delay that vote as long as they could.
During his speech on the steps of the Capitol, past President Scott Van Durbin thanked Illinois for taking in our state senators.
That you're showing our brave Democratic senators in your fair state. In the later carrier craft, we have a little cheer. So for those 14 Democratic senators, let's give them a later carrier cheer. Hip, hip! Hip, hip! Hip, hip!
February 19th, 2011. Crowds continue to grow at the Capitol as protests intensify against Act 10.
So there was a lot of people that came together, not just to rally, but to support those that were there protesting. I do remember a lot of people wearing their jackets underneath their union colors.
Definitely. I mean, there was the union feeling of solidarity that we were all in this together, no matter what union you came from. I think the AFL did a good job of getting people in there, whether it was a municipal worker, the prison workers, the AFSCME people. I think they just appreciated everybody's voice sticking up for them.
Yeah, I think it was very well received by the other unions and stuff. We're very thankful and appreciative of what we were there for.
I think it just goes to show in general how much letter carriers, whether it's out door knocking or just being activists in general, I think we're fairly well respected across the country, no matter where we're at. And
listening to some of the speeches, both from our National Secretary, Nicole Ryan, and our state president at the time, Scott Van Durbin, it really showed that the NALC was here to fight for all workers. And I know many speakers said it, but when they say an injury to one is an injury to all, that kind of stuck. And by being a young branch president at the time, you come back to the branch fired up.
I remember the day of our that we were going to do, our rally, our portion of the rally on the steps, and all the buses rolling up with NALC members in it. It was so cool. Like I said, we had to have had 300 members there from, I can't remember how many states. I know they were there from Illinois and South Dakota and, all over the state. And I just remember thinking, this is really cool that I'm here with all these letter carriers and we're going to go up to the steps and, we're going to have our voices heard. And it was, we marched all the way around the Capitol first. And the time was for the thing, and they had the whole podium up there, and there were speakers before us. I remember that, and it was an honor to do that. It really was, to represent carriers and to let them know we were in the fight, and we had their back.
Now, in a few minutes, I will introduce the president of the Wisconsin State Association, who is from Milwaukee. But before that, I wanted to say just a few words first. Everyone knows that Wisconsin is the birthplace of progressive politics. A politics that has enriched our country with Social Security, unemployment insurance, and yes, collective bargaining rights for government workers. But Wisconsin is also a special place for my union, our union, because it is also the birthplace of the National Association of Letter Carriers. Our union was born in a room over a beer hall in Milwaukee. Of course, That's right, more than 120 years ago. So this stage is a sacred place for our members, just as it is to the members of AFSCME all across America. Letter carriers know what Wisconsin's public employees know. There is no greater force for fairness, dignity, and democracy in the workplace than a union. There is no greater force for fairness, dignity, and democracy in our country than the labor movement. That's why your fight in Wisconsin is our fight all across America. We also know that the freedom to organize and the right to bargain collectively are fundamental rights and freedoms. As American citizens, we don't give up these fundamental rights just because we go to work for our fellow citizens as teachers, as firefighters, as social workers, or as letter carriers. We fought hard to earn these rights, and we cannot and must not let political opportunists like Governor Walker and his allies take them away.
I was the last one to actually speak that day. So we had Malin Mitchell from the firefighters and some of the other folks from the University of Wisconsin. When I finally got up on the stage, it was basically, we talked about, the field of blue. I was very happy and proud to be a letter carrier and to be involved in that because, an injury to one, injury to all. I mean, that is really true.
We are 5,000 proud city letter carriers who have been here since day one and will walk with Wisconsin's working families every step of the way. And that's what's making this rally so much different, because people appreciate the fact that brothers and sisters like us, the pipe fitters, every union are here in support of each other, because we know how important it is to maintain the middle class, maintain working rights, maintain integrity and collective bargaining, and make sure we're here for each other. That's called solidarity.
It was great to be part of the greater union movement, and that's really what that was all about. That's kind of what I was saying about my speech. I wanted to make sure that people knew that being a unionist was a really good thing, that we paid our taxes, we followed the rules and all that kind of good stuff. And it's like, why is this happening? All people want is a voice in their workplace.
February 26, 2011. Capitol Police announced that the Capitol will be closed and protesters forcibly removed. The next day, the decision is reversed and around-the-clock protests continue.
I did go inside. It was very peaceful when I was there. Like, I know every day wasn't like that, but I think the day letter carriers were there, it was all just very peaceful. Lots of walking around the square and doing some chanting.
A lot of the labor organizations that weren't affected by it at all were rallying to the support of the employee unions that were affected, such as the teachers. Sure. Now, the teachers were awesome. I would say that the level of protest signs and the way they tried to go about framing the issue were quite something. They were polite, intelligent, studied, and very clever indeed. And the traffic on the Capitol was amazing. There was always someone there. And what the NELC's situation was, they saw all the different unions here in Wisconsin, and also the international unions from across the country send their folks in as well in support and solidarity, and the NLC did the same. The inside of the Capitol, yes, there were people inside in the rotunda, but they put things up with painter's tape, which is, not going to mar the surfaces of the Capitol. So everyone was very respectful, but wanted to make their voices heard, no question about it. It was a little bit loud, but there was periodic chanting. It's round inside, and big railing, and there were everyone's banners were hanging there, including the NALC's on a number of occasions. At noon, people would come in and sing labor songs, and so that was a really exciting part of the day for sure. And there were general feeling of labor kumbaya as people were in effect, linking arms and being in solidarity with each other. It was really quite something. It really was, So the place was packed, and now there was a lot of police, mostly sheriff's departments from around the state, and they were all very cordial because there was no, animosity. It was really people were in there in a it's collegial in a way that people were there, trying to get something done, but in a reasonable manner, and and using intellect rather than brute strength or something like that.
March 4th, 2011. Governor Walker threatens to send out 1,500 layoff notices to state employees if the legislative impasse continues. In the weeks that followed, the state Senate removed parts of the bill that required spending money. Thus, the Senate could pass the legislation without a quorum. The Senate passed, without Democrats, 18-1. Assembly passed the bill 53-42 the next day. March 11, 2011. Governor Walker signs the bill, Act 10, into law. He also rescinds the layoff notices for 1,500 state employees issued earlier. The Democratic state senators return the next day. Shortly after the signing of the bill, Governor Walker and 3 other representatives were targeted for recall. On June 5th, 2012, Governor Scott Walker became the first governor in U.S. history to win a recall election. This was another significant blow to those state union workers. Following Wisconsin's lead, Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Iowa, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Kentucky considered or passed various reforms targeting public unions, but with differing scopes and enforcement. 2015, Wisconsin becomes a right-to-work state.
I really do think that Act 10 sparked a lot of things throughout the country. We do know that Act 10 here in Wisconsin did initiate the right to work vote that came out in 2015. Wisconsin became a right to work state, another union busting tactic. And then you saw other states showing up on their ballots for the right to work.
Growing up in a union household in South Dakota in a right to work state, where having a parent go through strikes through the 80s and seeing the impact of what that did on his livelihood, retirement, benefits, it was a no-brainer for us to be involved somehow. And just
December 2024, a Dane County judge ruled large parts of the law unconstitutional. It is currently on hold, pending an appeal, which will likely be decided by the Wisconsin Supreme Court.
3 years ago, I found myself sitting at the political table looking at the wages for our AFSCME brothers and sisters who lost their right to bargain for their wages in Act 10. It was budget time for the city, and as a member of city council, I had to vote on their wage increases. And I'll be honest, I was appalled with what I saw. This immediately took me back to the days at the state capitol and knocking doors and doing all of the things that we were doing in demonstration against Act 10. And I was determined to do something to fix what had gone so horribly wrong. That year, between a wage study adjustment increase, a CPI increase, and the standard pay increases, a 12.65% wage increase was implemented for all city employees in New London. I used the playbook the NALC gave me throughout a decade of training, and I used it in those discussions about the value of our workforce. This was a true full circle moment for me.
2025. Act 10 is still on hold and waiting for appeal. The case should be heard either late 2025 or early 2026, in the hopes that labor unions will not be silenced anymore.